G'day, Alan Stevens, International Profiling and Communication Specialist. I'm here with Angela Heise, who is a leadership and emotional productivity coach. G'day, Angela, how are you today?
Very well, thank you, Alan.
Now, we've been chatting about the situation that's impacting on everybody around the place at the moment. We went through COVID, but before COVID, we had a lot of people out there with anxiety, stress, mental health issues. We had 8 people a day committing suicide here in Australia, 6 of those men. We then had COVID and went through that process and a lot more mental health issues, a lot more worry. But now we're being told there's a recession going on or we're heading towards a recession. That's now putting a lot of people in greater fear. We're finding businesses are pulling back and not functioning. And we want to have a chat today about where this is all coming from and what's the impact of the news that's going out in the media today. You've done some research recently, and what sort of figures and information did you come up with?
Well, first of all, supposedly we're already in a recession, and some of the materials that I've read, or the sources that said we've been in a recession since 2020, and then others say that the average recession lasts about 11 months, so we should be way out of it. Then there is, there's the fact that we have the lowest unemployment rate, at least in Australia, in the last 48 years. So that's a significant, benefit supposedly, but everything at the moment says, I read one source that says it's official, Australian house prices are collapsing. I just had an agent come by this week to say, could we do an appraisal of your house because the values are going up so much? We'd like to give you the newest information. And it's like what I hear in real life and what I hear in the media does not match up at all.
And that's having a massive impact because your specialty is working with emotions and helping people to understand the impact that has on them and helping them and guiding them through ways of recovering from that. What's your feelings about this as far as the impact that the media that we're listening to today, what's that having on people and how accurate is it? Inflation
is going up, which is driven by consumer spending, which is driven by fear. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy from where I sit. And I don't know a lot about economics, but when I look at it in that regard, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, we know when employees aren't happy, performance drops. We know that staff that feel that they've been bullied, their performance can drop by up to 70%.
Yeah.
Those that observe other people who are being bullied, their performance will drop anything around the 40%. And a company, especially large companies, their performance across the board can be around about 29–30% reduction. So by worrying about what's happening and telling people we may be laying you off is instilling so much fear that their productivity is dropping as well.
Exactly.
So those companies are actually playing with a loaded gun. They're not even playing Russian roulette with one bullet. They've got every chain before.
Yep. And again, what it does, it just becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy. It's the typical, don't think of a pink elephant, and especially not the one that's really dangerous and can trample you at any given moment. Now, if I keep repeating that in my mind over and over again, I'm going to see pink elephants everywhere.
That's it. So what's the best way in your feelings that we need to do to solve this issue? What would be the advice for business people themselves? What should they be doing?
Well, I mean, I can't give, blanket suggestions, but my first suggestion would be focus on servicing your clients, connecting with people, doing your business, and stop being afraid of spending money. I'm not saying go into complete overspend, but keep doing, instead of holding back all the time and going, can I really afford to pay this? Just keep it at a level where you go, yeah, that's acceptable. I can do that, instead of stopping everything altogether, because that's what I hear a lot. People go, I can't afford it. And it's like, okay, yes, prices have gone up, but have they gone up that much that we can't afford anything anymore?
That's exactly right. Because, excuse me, when I look at it, I think of you buy a service and you look at the return on investment. We buy things because it brings more back to us in the process. So a business should be looking at, well, how do we keep the business running? Not where do we save money, but how do we increase the money that we've got coming in? As you said, you've got a company that's growing. And here's the board looking at, nailing one foot of the business to the ground, so I can't move.
Yeah. So they're cutting spending in marketing and all sorts of other, in all sorts of areas, which is what drives the business. So again, it becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy. So I would say, again, stop watching the media, especially the ones that are really, and we've talked about this, what is it?
No, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, good stories don't sell the news.
Yeah.
Fear does.
Yeah. So, and my suggestion would also be, instead of getting on these media, and I've literally just visited a friend last weekend, and she has the news channel running in the background all day long. And I lasted 15 minutes and then I said, could we please turn this off? And so really focusing on what works. Again, connecting with people, asking people, how are you going? Are you okay? Because a lot of people are just putting on the facade at the moment of I'm fine. And we know what that stands for, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm really not. So, yeah.
See, and that's the thing, I think a lot of businesses have been educated to operate in that way. They get financial advice from their accountants. The advice you should be getting from an accountant is the advice around how to get your taxes down. But as far as growing your business, I don't think the accountants really have that as a major focus. So it's more a case of talk to the people who can give you that financial advice.
Yeah.
But then it's also, they need to be thinking about how they're dealing with their clients. No, not their clients, but their staff.
Yeah. Because
that we're seeing as one of the major issues at the moment. A company that I was talking to one of the senior directors of an Australian-wide company. This was a few years ago. This was before COVID, and he'd just taken over the company about 2 years before. And I'd asked him, I said, well, what was your focus when you took over the role? He said, well, my role was to right-size the business, get rid of the costs and the wastage and everything else. I said, so you downsize the business? He said, well, effectively, yes, we did. I said, and how long did it take? Were you making immediate profits after that? He said, oh, no, it took quite some time. I said, well, how long? He said, it was over 12 months. It was closer to 18 months. And then we started making profits. And I said, well, how did you handle the people? He said, oh, HR took care of them. I said, no, not the ones that left, the ones that stayed.
Yeah.
What did you tell them? How did you treat them? And he said, well, we just got on with normal. And I go, that's why it took you 12 months to 18 months to recover, because all those people are thinking, am I next?
Yeah, exactly.
And it takes a period of time before they get over that fear. Because if you think about it, most people are, on the breadline. They've only got enough savings to last a week, if that's about it. So they live pay to pay. If they're thinking about losing their job, their performance is going to drop, and that has an impact on the business.
Yeah. So again, it all starts going downhill because, it becomes literally like a domino effect.
That's it. So we've got the advice there for the business owners to talk to their staff, to let them know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I would actually recommend, talking to some of their senior staff who have been there, understand the business, and ask them, well, how can we keep this going? Yeah. What would be advice that you would bring forward?
Yeah.
Because you're bringing in fresh minds and involving the staff so they feel part of it. I know there was one boss, he refused to reduce anyone's wages or put anybody off. And in fact, he forego his actual income itself, forwent it, and he would he spread that money out around the pay to everybody else.
Yeah.
Their performance went up.
Yeah.
The loyalty went up and the staff appreciated it. Yeah. He's been able to bring his wage back to where it was, but he was able to save his business in the process.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the managers, the owners of the business have to give a little bit to make sure that it survives. Because, hey, you want your business to survive? What do you have to do to make sure that happens? And laying people off and leaving people in your business who've got fear is not going to be the way to do it. But now we have the problem of the staff. Most of them feeling that, have I got a job tomorrow? How long before my neck's on the block?
Yeah.
How do I go about this? So what advice, this is where I think our expertise really comes in. We've got business owners, we've got to, they've got to take this on, and look at things differently, but they're people. How would you, what would be your advice to them?
Well, I mean, I had that discussion with somebody this week where it was like, what should I tell people? Like, do I let them know that the business is wobbly at the moment? Or do I just pretend that nothing is going on? And I said, well, I don't think that it's a good idea to go into full panic mode and tell people that you're about to freak out because business might be going down, but it's also not a good idea to just pretend that everything is fine. My suggestion would be, say to people, there are certain things that are outside my control at the moment. We're doing our best to keep the business going, and we're doing everything to make sure that things stay the way they are as much as we can. And in the meantime, let's just keep going. And if we're feeling insecure, let's share that with each other, but not from a place of panic making, but I need some support here. I'm starting feeling a little bit wobbly. And what's really important, especially for leaders, is I think this is my approach to it. It's about saying, I'm a human being. I have emotions like everybody else. And I may not be always the person you can look to for complete, and utter reassurance that I control the market. But what I will be is I will be what I call a stable reference point for supporting you.
And then for the individuals themselves, what would be the advice you would give to the actual employees directly?
Do your job.
Yeah.
Keep going and share your fears, not necessarily with your colleagues, but with people outside the business. Probably not your partner, because that might create a whole domino effect of a different kind, but people you trust and who you relate to, but who are not necessarily directly involved. And I would definitely, some people, I would recommend that you go and get some professional help. If you find that you get really anxious and you get really stressed out, go and find help. Because it's really important that we manage these emotions. I mean, it's this, we go, if our pipes break or the electricity fuse or whatever, we go and get an expert. But when we start wobbling in mental health, we just feel that we have to keep going without help.
That's it. So, and I think, as you mentioned, as far as the employee going home and telling their spouse and worrying them, because that is a bit of an issue. They're going to talk about the fears that they have. They don't know what's really happening in the business because they haven't spoken to the management. The management may have spoken to them, but in most cases they haven't. So there's no communication between the management and them. They're passing their fears on to their partner, which causes problems there, and that then can impact on their marriage very quickly. But if the person they should be talking to in that point is go and talk to the management and say, hey, we've got some fears. We want to know where things. So either the management can instigate those conversations or the employees can. Yeah. And they need to step up and do that.
Yeah. I was presupposing that they had already talked to the management. That is always my first, like, go and talk to the people who are, who pay you. Because, you want to make sure that you have open communication with them. But again, it's also finding help outside of the organization and surrounding yourself with people who can support you in that. Because again, we're just so, in a world where social media and fake profiles and, and branding, personal branding matter so much. It's important that we surround ourselves with people where we can be vulnerable and we can say, you know what, I'm struggling.
That's it. You need to be, as I said, be able to be open with people that you trust so that you can get the support that you need. It's like I always say to people, you've got 2 ears, 2 eyes and 1 mouth, and you use them in that proportion. But when you're talking to somebody, use the questions before you make statements. Yeah. Because I believe that the stats are showing that when somebody starts talking about a problem they've got, the average is before someone steps in and starts to give advice is 19 seconds. There's not much information you can get in 19 seconds. So really, if somebody jumps in and starts giving you advice on a situation without having asked you a myriad of questions, they're actually putting on you what their fears are. It's all about them, not about you. So I always say, ask every question you can think of and then ask one more. Yeah. Once you get all the information from you've asked all the questions, then this is what you're telling me. This is how I'm understanding it. Have I got it right?
Yeah.
The person then will say, yes, you've got it right, and therefore they know that you've been listening and they can trust you. If they say no, you're having a conversation, and that's a win as well.
Absolutely.
And so now you've got somebody who is listening to you and focusing on you, not bringing their emotions into it and dumping those on you. So again, it's finding the right people.
Yeah. I always recommend that asking somebody when somebody comes and saying, you know, may I make an observation, or would you like some feedback, or may I make a suggestion? It's getting somebody to give you permission. And if the person says, look, you know, I just really want to vent here, I just really need to get it out of my system, then just 2 ears, 2 eyes, and no mouth.
That's it. I always say, you always ask the other person, do you want me to fix this, or you want me to listen?
Yeah.
And if they want you to listen, then you know it's got nothing to do with you. They just want somebody to hold their space so they can vent. Because quite often, once you vented and you got it out, if you ask the person the same question again, you will get a more rational and more thought out response, a less emotional one. First one, they just need to get that out of their system so they could then think straight. Giving them advice at that point is making the situation worse. So that's, I think, is a great place, and that we've talked about those issues. It's a matter of actually having conversations, talking to the right people, not talking and complaining to the people who can't really help you.
Yes.
Because all you're doing there is dumping your feelings on somebody else. Go and talk to the source.
Yeah.
You know, if you're worried about where things are going, you know, go and talk to the management. The media, as I said, the stories that come out, they sell, their job is to sell the news. And so it's not about the truth as far as it goes. Some stories are true, some stories aren't. The thing is to find out the real facts. So if you're worried about how the recession is going to impact on you as an employee, go and talk to your bosses. If you're a business person, then go and find people who can give you the right business advice on that, and find the right information from there. Any further words or advice that you would have, Angela?
Communication. It's just talking, and it's not assuming. It's managing emotions to such a degree that you don't let them overwhelm you. Because once we talk about them, and the important thing is also labeling it. It's about saying, I'm really anxious right now. I'm really frustrated. I'm really scared, whatever it might be. Because a lot of the time when we ask somebody, how are you? We go, I'm fine. And again, I mean, that means, if you permit me, it stands for me, it's an acronym. It stands for fucked up, irrational, neurotic, emotionally unavailable. And it's just, I really don't want to talk about what's going on right now. And that shuts down any kind of communication. So when somebody says, I'm fine, and I go, how specifically are you fine? Tell me what's going, are you really, do you want to not talk about it? That's, again, it depends on the relationship, but really check in with the person and go and find out what's going on. That's
it. As you say, communication is extremely important. It's communication with the right people and not communication with the voices in your head, because those worry voices will drive you nuts. They'll make it worse for you.
Yes.
Okay, Angela. Well, thanks very much for chatting with me on this, because I thought, we've been talking about this for a while and just realized that so many people out there are struggling, and it's just going to get worse for them. Yes, we can then go and have talks with them after it's hit them. But as they say, prevention is much cheaper and much quicker than a cure.
Yeah, and resilience is something that you can actually develop, contrary to what people say. It's a teachable, it's a learnable skill.
That's it.
So
having the right people around us. Well, again, Angela, thanks very much. And I hope everybody who's listened to this has got something out of it. We're always available if you want to get in touch with either of us. At the same time, we've got people in the Campfire Project. There's a lot of other groups that we're involved with as well. Business of Smiles and all the others. There's so many places where there are people who have the skills to listen and hold your space.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much, and we'll see you all later on. Bye for now.